Sometimes the heart doesn't break from what people do to us. Sometimes it breaks slowly, quietly, from what we do to ourselves. There are habits we carry, patterns we repeat, that drain our strength, dim our light, and separate us from the peace Allah intended for us. The heart was created to be soft but strong, gentle but resilient, spiritual but grounded. But when we keep exposing it to what harms it, we start to feel empty, lost, and exhausted in ways we cannot explain. One of the greatest forms of mercy is Allah showing us the cracks in our hearts, not to shame us, but to guide us back to what heals. Every wound is a sign that something needs to change, and every moment of discomfort is an invitation to return. When we make space for unhealthy habits, like holding on to grudges, chasing validation from people, drowning in negative self-talk, or neglecting our connection with Allah, the heart grows weaker, more fragile, more heavy. But when we let go, when we choose discipline over distraction and remembrance over noise, the heart regains its strength. Healing the heart is never about perfection. It is about honesty. It is about admitting that what we cling to is hurting us and having the courage to release. Your heart wasn't created to break over the same things again and again. It was created to rise, to grow, and to return to the one who never tires of strengthening you. Here is the expanded version. No headings, up to 700 words, and in the same emotional, spiritual style you prefer. Stop holding on to grudges. You may think you are protecting yourself by keeping the memory of the hurt alive. You are only tightening the chain around your own heart. The people who hurt you may have moved on with their lives, forgotten the moment, or never even realized the impact of their actions. But you remain there, replaying the scene, carrying their words like weeds, letting their actions echo inside you long after they've walked away. Grudges don't imprison them, they imprison you. They don't weaken your enemies, they weaken your spirit. They take the place in your heart that should be filled with light, and they darken it with heaviness. You were never meant to walk through life dragging the memories of past wounds behind you. You were meant to walk with dignity, to rise with grace, to let Allah be the one who settles matters that were too heavy for you to carry. Holding on to grudges is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to fall. Every time you rehearse the hurt, you reopen the wound. Every time you justify your anger, you strengthen the rope that binds you to that moment. It becomes a cycle, one that steals your inner peace. And the saddest part is that it starts to shape your identity. You begin to see yourself through the lens of what happened to you instead of who Allah created you to be. The more you cling to grudges, the more you let someone else's actions define your heart. And that is far too precious a place to surrender to anyone but Allah. But forgiveness does not mean the hurt never mattered. It means you choose not to let it control you anymore. It means you understand that your heart deserves better than constant battles with ghosts. It means you trust that Allah saw what they did, even if no one else did, and He will deal with them with perfect justice. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is strength. It is an act of courage to unclench your fist when everything in you wants to hold tightly to the anger. It is an act of faith to release someone when your ego demands revenge. It is an act of spiritual maturity to see, my peace is more valuable than proving a point. Letting go is not about them. It is about you reclaiming your heart, and you don't have to forgive in a dramatic moment. Sometimes forgiveness happens quietly, gradually. Sometimes it's the prayer you make in the middle of the night saying, Ya Allah, take this pain out of my chest. Sometimes it's the decision not to respond with bitterness. Sometimes it's choosing silence over reaction. Sometimes it's simply not revisiting the story again. Forgiveness is a process, and Allah rewards every step you take toward it, even if you stumble along the way. What matters is that you keep walking. Because the moment you stop trying is the moment the grudge becomes a home instead of a passing emotion. Your heart was created to be soft, not weak. Soft. A soft heart bends but does not break. It absorbs pain but does not store it. It feels deeply but does not harden. When you cling to grudges, the heart becomes rigid and fragile, unable to grow. But when you release them, the heart becomes light again. It breathes. It expands. It returns to its natural state of tranquility and remembrance. And that is when you feel closest to Allah. Not when everything is perfect, but when your heart is free. So don't hold on to grudges. Let Allah handle what you cannot. Trust that He is the witness, the judge, the protector. Trust that He will restore what was taken from you in ways far greater than you can imagine. And trust that your heart is worth protecting, not by building walls, but by letting go of what was never meant to stay. Holding on to grudges will hold you back, but letting go will set you free. Let go of the need for validation. Because the moment you begin living for the approval of people, you stop living for the peace of your own heart. There is a kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly trying to be enough for others. Enough to be liked, enough to be accepted, enough to be praised. It drains you quietly. It shapes your thoughts, your decisions, your identity, until you find yourself becoming someone you don't even recognize. And the saddest part is that even after all the effort, all the pleasing, all the bending and reshaping, people still have the power to withhold what you are desperately seeking. You cannot control their opinions, their moods, or their expectations. So why give them control over your worth? The truth is that validation from people is fragile. It shifts with time, with emotions, with circumstances. One moment they admire you, the next they question you. One moment they celebrate you, the next they criticize you. And if your heart is tied to their approval, you will rise and fall with every change in their tone. That is not freedom. That is dependence. And dependence on creation will always weaken you because no one's praise is permanent and no one's criticism defines your destiny. There comes a point when you must choose. Will you let your heart be shaped by the shallow opinions of people or by the deep and unwavering truth of Allah's view? Because the one who created you, the one who knows the secrets of your soul, does not change His love based on mistakes, imperfections, or human standards. He looks at your intention when people only look at your image. He sees your effort when people only see your outcome. He knows your sincerity when people judge your performance. Why chase approval from those who see so little when the one who sees everything is already supporting you? Letting go of the need for validation doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop living in fear of their opinions. It means you stop molding your life to fit their expectations. It means you silence the voice that whispers, "What will they think?" and replace it with, "What does Allah think?" That shift, small in words but massive in impact, becomes the beginning of true emotional freedom. When you let go of validation, you reclaim your authenticity. You allow yourself to be human, to make mistakes, to learn, without feeling like the world is watching your every step. You stop performing and start living. You stop pretending and start being. You stop seeking applause and start seeking purpose. And ironically, when you become unapologetically yourself, rooted in sincerity rather than performance, the right people begin to love you for who you truly are, not for the mask you wore to please them. Think of the times you held back your voice, your ideas, your dreams because you feared criticism. Think of the times you said yes just to avoid disappointing someone, even though everything in your heart was screaming no. Think of the times you doubted your worth simply because someone failed to acknowledge your effort. These moments did not reflect your truth. They reflected your attachment to validation, and breaking that attachment is one of the most liberating acts of the soul. Letting go is not easy, because for many it was not easy. Validation has become a habit, a comfort, a measure, a shield. But you must ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped measuring your value through other people's eyes? What if the only approval you sought was from Allah, whose love is unconditional, whose judgment is fair, whose mercy is limitless? Your heart would breathe differently. Your steps would feel lighter. Your life would finally reflect your essence instead of your fear. So release the need for validation. Let people think what they want you. Let their opinions come and go like waves on the shore. They make noise, but they never change the depth of the ocean. Focus on your intention, your sincerity, your purpose. Because when you stop chasing validation, you start chasing truth. And the heart that lives in truth is a heart that finally finds peace. Replace negative self-talk with compassion. Because often, the voice that hurts you the most is not the voice of the world. It's the one inside your own mind. We speak to ourselves in ways we would never speak to someone we love. We repeat every flaw, magnify every mistake, and punish ourselves for being human. And the heart listens. The heart absorbs every harsh word, every criticism, every whispered lie we tell ourselves in moments of fear or weakness. Over time, those words become beliefs. And those beliefs become the cage we live inside. Sometimes the heart breaks not because of what people do to us, but because of what we repeatedly tell ourselves. I'm not enough. I'm a failure. I'm unworthy. I always mess things up. These sentences, once planted, grow like thorns. And when thorns grow long enough, even hope becomes painful to touch. Negative self-talk becomes a habit, one you don't even notice anymore. It becomes the background noise of your life, shaping your decisions, dimming your potential, and distancing you from the mercy of Allah. But Allah never asked you to speak to yourself like this. He never asked you to tear yourself down. He never asked you to carry shame for the rest of your life or define yourself by your past. His words are filled with gentleness, forgiveness, and compassion. He calls you back even after you turn away. He honors your smallest effort. He rewards your hidden struggles. He comforts you when no one else sees your tears. So why do we treat ourselves with a harshness the most merciful never used on us? Replacing negative self-talk with compassion doesn't mean ignoring your mistakes. It means letting your mistakes teach you instead of destroy you. It means saying, I slipped, but I can rise, instead of I failed, and I always will. It means understanding that growth comes through imperfection, not despite it. It means giving yourself the same patience you would give a friend who is trying their best. Think of how you speak to a child who is learning to walk. You don't scold them for falling. You cheer when they try again. You don't call them weak. You celebrate their steps. You don't shame their imbalance. You admire their courage. Why? Because you see innocence, effort, and potential. Allah sees the same in you. The only difference is that you refuse to see it in yourself. Self-compassion is not arrogance. It is not complacency. It is not making excuses. It is acknowledging the truth that you are a work in progress, and progress requires kindness. When you replace self-hate with understanding, you stop fighting your own soul. You stop being your own enemy. You stop sabotaging your healing. Compassion sounds like this. I made a mistake, but I'm learning. I'm struggling, but I'm trying. I am worthy because Allah created me with purpose. I am enough because He says I am. These words are not delusion. They are alignment. They align your heart with the reality that Allah never created you to drown in self-blame. And when you shift your inner voice, everything outside of you begins to shift too. You become more patient with others because you are patient with yourself. You become more hopeful because you believe change is possible. You become more resilient because you stop attacking yourself during moments of difficulty. You start healing from the inside out. Negative self-talk weakens the heart because it disconnects you from Allah's mercy. Compassion strengthens it because it brings you back. It reminds you that you are worthy of love, not because you are perfect, but because you belong to the one who is perfect. It reminds you that you are allowed to be human, that you are allowed to start again, that you are allowed to be gentle with the person you are becoming. So replace the harsh voice with a kinder one's. Speak to your heart the way Allah speaks to you, with mercy, softness, and hope, because the words you whisper to yourself become the path you walk. And you deserve to walk a path of gentleness. Limit distractions. Because the heart was not created to survive constant noise, constant comparison, constant stimulation. It was created to breathe, to reflect, to remember Allah, to feel the sweetness of silence and presence. We live in a world that never stops pulling at us. Screens buzzing, notifications flashing, people demanding our attention. The endless scrolling of lives that do not belong to us. And slowly, without noticing, the heart becomes tired. Not from effort, but from overload. Not from work, but from being flooded with things that do not nourish the soul. Distractions don't always look harmful. They often come wrapped in entertainment, convenience, and curiosity, but even soft distractions can weaken the heart when they become excessive. The danger of distraction is not just in wasting time, it is in losing yourself. You start drifting moment by moment, scroll by scroll, until your days blur together. You forget what truly matters. You forget the quiet moments where clarity lives. You forget your own thoughts, your own breath, your own inner voice. Most importantly, you forget the presence of Allah, the one who brings peace when the world feels heavy. Distractions steal something precious, your awareness. And without awareness, the heart cannot stay connected, cannot stay purposeful, cannot stay awake. Many people wonder why they feel spiritually distant, emotionally numb, mentally scattered. They think something is deeply wrong with them. But often, the reason is simpler: too much noise, too much input, too many things competing for the heart's energy. When the heart is constantly stimulated, it loses the ability to rest. When it can't rest, it can't reflect. And without reflection, it cannot grow. Distractions don't break the heart in dramatic ways. They slowly drain it, quietly, until one day you realize you feel empty without knowing why. Limiting distractions is not about rejecting the world. It is about protecting your inner world. It is about creating space for what truly fills you instead of what constantly drains you. For some, distraction comes in the form of technology. For others, it's people, noise, arguments, gossip, or even their own thoughts spiraling in every direction. Whatever the source, the effect is the same disconnection. And the heart that becomes disconnected from its purpose will always feel restless. When you start limiting distractions, you begin to notice things you had forgotten, like the softness of your own breath, the stillness in a quiet room, the beauty of a simple moment, the comfort of a sincere prayer. You begin to reconnect with the parts of yourself buried under all the noise. You begin to hear your thought. You begin to hear your heart again. And in that quiet, you begin to feel Allah again. Sometimes the most spiritual act is simply turning things off, closing the app, stepping away, putting the phone down, saying no to things that don't matter, and saying yes to the things that bring peace. Your heart deserves that stillness. Your soul needs it. Reflection does not happen in chaos. Understanding does not happen in distraction. Healing does not happen when your mind is scattered across 1,000 meaningless things. There is a reason why some of the most beautiful moments in worship come from silence. Standing in prayer before Allah when the world is asleep, whispering dua in the quiet of dawn, feeling tears fall in moments when no one is watching. Distraction makes these moments. Limiting distractions makes them possible again. So protect your space. Protect your attention. Protect your heart. The world will always try to pull you in every direction, but you get to choose where your energy goes. And when you choose with intention, the heart becomes stronger, calmer, more anchored. You begin to live instead of react. You begin to notice blessings instead of noise. You begin to feel peace instead of emptiness. Limit distractions, not to escape life, but to return to it with clarity. Not to avoid the world, but to reconnect with the one who created it. Because a heart surrounded by noise will always feel lost. But a heart that protects its quiet will always find its way back to Allah. Don't neglect your spiritual practices. Because the heart was never designed to survive on dunya alone. It was created to be fed by remembrance, strengthened by worship, and softened by turning back to Allah again and again. When you stop praying with presence, when your Quran gathers dust, when your dua becomes an afterthought, it's not that life suddenly becomes harder. It's that you become less equipped to face it. The storms feel heavier, the wounds feel deeper, the uncertainty feels sharper, and the world begins to overwhelm you in ways it never did before. Not because life changed, but because you drifted away from the one who gives you the strength to endure it. Spiritual neglect doesn't show up all at once. It happens quietly, gradually. You miss one prayer, then another. You stop reciting Quran because you feel tired. You stop making dua because you think you're too distracted. You stop engaging in dhikr because you feel disconnected. And slowly, without realizing it, the heart becomes dim. Not dead, but covered. Covered by stress, by anxiety, by the heaviness of dunya that only worship can wash away. The heart becomes like a lamp running out of oil. You notice the flicker before you notice the darkness. Spiritual practices are not rituals meant to restrict you. They are lifelines meant to revive you. They are not burdens. They are oxygen. Every sajda releases something heavy. Every ayah fills something empty. Every moment of dhikr cleanses something cloudy. Every act of worship connects you back to the one who never leaves you, even when you unintentionally drift away from him. When you stop nourishing your soul, your heart begins to feel the consequences, restlessness, confusion, fear, emotional exhaustion. But when you return, even with the smallest steps, the heart quickly remembers its home. Many people think they need to be perfect to start again. They think they need to feel spiritual before they pray, or feel focused before they open the Quran. But sometimes the feeling only comes the successors after you begin. Sometimes the peace comes after the effort, not before it. Allah never asks for perfection. He asks for sincerity. Even if your prayer is shaky, even if your mind wanders, even if your recitation is slow, even if your heart feels distant, keep showing up. Because every time you show up for Allah, He shows up for you in ways you cannot imagine. Think of how life feels when you are spiritually connected. Your heart becomes lighter, problems feel smaller, and hope grows stronger. You begin to trust what once scared you. You begin to let go of what once controlled you. You begin to see blessings in places you overlooked. You begin to find calm in situations that used to break you. This is not a coincidence. It is the result of a heart connected to its creator. And when you neglect your spiritual practices, you don't just lose connection. You lose alignment. You lose guidance. You lose clarity. You begin to rely on your own strength instead of relying on Allah's. And no heart can handle that weight alone. But the moment you turn back, even after days, months, or years, Allah welcomes you with mercy that wipes away every moment of distance. He doesn't shame. He doesn't reject you. He doesn't turn you away. He honors your return more than you can comprehend. Because to Him, your effort, no matter how small, is precious. So don't neglect your spiritual practices, not for the sake of routine, but for the sake of your heart. Not for fear of punishment, but for hope of closeness. Not because you must, but because you need it. More than food, more than sleep, more than anything else you seek in this world. Pray even when you're tired. Make dua even when you feel empty. Read Quran even if it's one verse. Do dicker even if it's whispered through tears. Every spiritual effort becomes a rope pulling you out of heaviness and back into light. Your heart is strongest when it remembers Allah, and it is weakest when it forgets. Return to what nourishes you. Return to what stabilizes you. Return to the practices that remind your soul of its purpose. Because the moment you reconnect spiritually, everything in your life begins to align again. Choose healing habits consistently. Because healing is not a moment, it is a journey. It is not a dramatic breakthrough. It is a quiet commitment. Most people wait for a big sign, a sudden change, a miracle that transforms them overnight. But the truth is, hearts don't heal through grand gestures. They heal through small, repeated acts of mercy you give to yourself. Day after day, moment after moment, healing is built in the tiny decisions you make when no one is watching, choosing to breathe instead of panic, choosing to pray instead of numb, choosing to rest instead of collapse, choosing to speak kindly to yourself instead of tearing yourself apart. Healing is slow. Healing is gentle. Healing is consistent. And it requires you to show up even on days you feel tired, discouraged, or defeated. The mistake many people make is believing that healing is supposed to feel good all the time. But sometimes healing feels like breaking. Sometimes it feels like confronting wounds you've avoided for years. Sometimes it feels like losing the very habits that once protected you. Sometimes it feels like walking away from people or environments you loved because they no longer nurture your soul. Healing is not always comfortable, but it is always worth it. And the only way to reach that better version of yourself is through habits that strengthen your heart, not habits that soothe your ego momentarily, but leave you empty afterward. Choosing healing habits means choosing yourself, not your comfort, not your past patterns, not your momentary impulses, but your true self, the one buried under years of pain and noise. Healing habits can be simple: a few minutes of quiet reflection, a sincere dua, a consistent bedtime, a short walk to clear your mind, choosing not to retaliate when someone triggers your wounds, choosing to forgive yourself when you fall back into old patterns. They might seem small, almost insignificant, but over time they reshape the heart. Just like water shapes stone through persistence, healing habits reshape your inner world through repetition. And the most beautiful thing is that Allah rewards every step you take toward healing, even the ones you think are too small to matter. A single moment of patience, a single whispered, "Ya Allah, help me," a single act of self-control, a single step toward better choices. All of these are seen, counted, and cherished by the one who knows how hard it is for you. Healing habits are not just emotional practices. They are spiritual investments. They connect you to Allah in ways you don't always notice, but your heart feels. But you must be consistent, not perfect. Consistent. You will slip, you will fall back sometimes, you will break down, you will lose your rhythm, and that's normal. Healing is not linear, it moves like waves. But every time you return to your healing habits, the heart learns resilience. Every time you try again, you weaken the hold of the old patterns. Every time you choose growth over comfort, the heart grows stronger. Consistency does not mean never failing, it means never quitting. Think of how different your life becomes when you start choosing habits that nourish your soul instead of habits that drain its depth. The things that once overwhelmed you start to feel manageable. The things that once broke you start to feel lighter. The things that once controlled you start to lose their power. Your heart feels less chaotic, more grounded, more present. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to trust Allah. You begin to feel alive again. Healing is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole. It is about returning to your true essence. The version of you that is connected, sincere, hopeful, clear-hearted, and spiritually aligned. And that version of you emerges not through occasional effort, but through consistent nurturing. So choose healing habits consistently. Choose Choose them on the easy days and especially on the hard ones. Choose them when you feel motivated and when you feel numb. Choose them when you believe in yourself and when you do in yourself, because the heart becomes what you repeatedly do. And when you choose healing again and again, your heart learns to rise slowly, beautifully, into the person you were always meant to become,